Today's journey takes us to Indonesia, including Bali, Borneo, and the Komodo Islands. Yeah, couldn't find my normal crew, so I recruited Heath and Clint from Texas. I'm Jerry Fife, and I live in Phoenix, and you may know me from some of the books and articles that I've written, including one on the Komodo Islands. So let's take a closer look. Indonesia consists of over 18,000 islands, and Borneo is just north of Bali, and the Komodo Islands are basically straight east. We flew from Phoenix to LA and then Taiwan. When sanity was present as it was 2012. And just beware of the laws of the places you're going. For example, China, it is a death penalty for drug trafficking. We made it to Bali, and about everyone in Bali drives a motor scooter. Oftentimes 4 or 5 people on that scooter. We spent a couple days in Bali in a surrounding area, traveling to some of the temples, snorkeling, doing a lot of the typical tourist things. And perhaps my favorite thing is just seeing the lush green countryside and the rice fields on the terrace slopes. Beautiful sight. One of the lodges we stayed at was right on the edge of the rice fields. I was impressed when I saw these 2 women moving block. They put them on their heads, and I thought, oh, they must not be that heavy. But when I checked them out, they were heavier than I thought. I don't really know what it's called, but I like this black-stemmed elfin ear plant. This was where we were staying, right at the edge of the rice fields. And it was very nice except for the outdoor plumbing. The snorkeling was good around the island, but not as good as we'd have when we went to the Komodo Islands. I was impressed with this large barracuda that we saw underneath the pier in this picture. We also got to see a number of the temples from a little different perspective. Another popular tourist site that we visited was the Monkey Temple. And of course we saw a number of monkeys, and Heath got a nice close-up picture of a monkey. The next day, after a couple short flights, we made our way to Borneo. After a bumpy taxi ride, we made our way to the port, where we would catch our boat. These giant buildings you see are not for people, they're actually for birds, where the Chinese harvest the nests for bird nest soup. And across the river are all the palm tree plantations where they harvest the palms for palm oil. We had a relaxing trip down the river, enjoying food, but I decided that sometimes perhaps it's best if you not see where the food comes from. Our guide stopped at the village where he was from and gave us a little tour. Just interesting to see how the people actually live there. We joked with the guide that we hadn't seen many reptiles, and so he made a point to make a stop at this location, where we were surprised when a guy pulled out an igloo that had a number of young false gharials. He said they were to be released down at the river. Hopefully that's true. The sound of the engine made me feel like Humphrey Bogart in The African Queen. Soon we turned off this chocolate river into a crystal clear river, and I was surprised to find out that the color of that river was due to mine tailings, that the water should be crystal clear. We saw proboscis monkeys, some water monitors there up in a tree, there in the water, easier to spot in the water. And then we made it to the sanctuary for orangutans. Of course, we had this other little visitor that we said hello to as well. There were platforms where they put bananas so that the wild orangutans would come and eat and the tourists could see them. It's quite interesting, actually spectacular to watch these giant apes. I don't know if the orangutans enjoyed us being there or not, but sometimes I think they like to have a little fun with us, as in this case. Hi. But we did enjoy seeing the mother and her young baby scurry up the tree. Of course, the platform with bananas also attracted other animals, such as this pig and squirrels. One more orangutan sanctuary, and then it was a flight back to Bali, where we then caught a flight to Flores, where our trip to the Komodo Islands would begin. It's about a 2-hour boat ride to Rinca Island and another 2 hours on to Komodo. But this boat would be where we'd live for the next few nights. This was my sleeping quarters. It's a beautiful boat ride, just spectacular to see the mountains as they appear before you. Rinca is one of 5 islands that have Komodo dragons. We paid our $15 National Park entry fee and hired a guide who said that Rinca actually has more Komodo dragons than Komodo Island. Komodo dragons use their tongue for smell and can actually smell prey up to over 5 miles. They're attracted to the village where they live amongst the people. The males fight, and this male had a broken leg and will likely die as a result of it, as it will be unable to feed. There were several trails, and we always chose the longest one, though most of the dragons that you're going to see are actually around the village. It was initially thought that the bacteria in the saliva of the Komodo dragon infected its prey and ultimately led to its death. Scientists have now discovered that Komodo dragons actually have venom glands and believe that venom may aid in the death of its prey. Though this is disputed, what isn't is that Komodo dragons hunt and kill large prey. It's estimated that there may only be 2,500 to 5,000 Komodo dragons remaining in the wild. However, there may only be 350 breeding females. Komodo dragons are parthenogenic, meaning a female doesn't need a male to reproduce. Unfortunately, the resulting offspring are all male. You can see we enjoyed our time on the boat. When we weren't on the island looking for Komodo dragons or Russell vipers or other animals, we enjoyed relaxing swims, eating lunch, and of course a lot of snorkeling. From Rinca, we took another 2-hour boat ride to get to the Komodo Islands. We stopped at the pink sand beach to go snorkeling. And yes, the sand actually does have a pinkish glow to it. Snorkeling's good, spectacular corals, interesting fish. Of course, one of my snorkeling highlights was finding Nemo. Yeah, the clownfish are spectacular as they hide in their sea amenities. I saw a number of the blue starfish like I'd seen in Fiji. I also saw some of these other starfish. We also went to a mangrove island named something along the lines of Puleu Kelang, where at dusk we watched thousands of fruit bats as they fly from the mangrove island to Komodo Island to feed. These large bats, also known as flying foxes, have a wingspan of approximately 4 feet. It's spectacular to see them in the trees during the daytime, but even more spectacular at night as you see them leave the mangroves and fly to Komodo Island.
Oh, they go over there, huh?
Yeah.
There's some over there and some in the middle. Huh? That's more than last
Everything in
night,
it. All kinds of fruit.
Yeah. A lot of bats. This is a short-nosed fruit bat, right?
Yeah.
On the water, there are always beautiful sunsets and sunrises. And in the morning, we'd go into the island, do a hike, and see the Komodo dragons in the wild. After that, we typically go snorkeling, have lunch, or some other adventure. So, here's the snorkeling adventure. A few more pictures for you to enjoy before we get into the main pictures on Komodo. Once we get back to the boat, we often had some of the locals come up in their canoes and try to sell us various souvenirs. Enjoyed lunch, typically fish, rice. But then, our trek across Komodo. A short distance into our hike, there was a man-made watering hole, which was a great spot for Komodo dragons.
Do you like to see reptile?
Yes, very much.
Reptile is a beautiful animal. And also aggressive.
I think I could have sat here all day and watched the Komodo dragons wandering around, getting little scrimmages as the males will fight. But we had more of a hike. But before we move on with the hike, I had to get some pictures with the dragons. One with the hat on, and one with the hat off. And of course, about 10,000 more. But As you hike across the island, you don't see that many dragons. You see some other animals, but occasionally one pops up. All of a sudden, there's a Komodo dragon. This was actually the site where they used to feed goats to the Komodo dragons and the tourists could watch. These were two nesting sites for Komodo dragons. I mentioned earlier that Komodo dragons kill and eat large prey, such as this deer. Hard to believe, but what's even harder to believe is that they can kill and eat these water buffaloes. I saw a special on TV and it looked like a mud hole exactly like this, where a group of Komodo dragons attacked and took down a water buffalo.
They are active here in the morning.
Spectacular to see. If you're not paying attention, you might miss the Komodo dragon on the rock. There it is. Yep, just sleeping on the rock, chilling out. But then, eventually back to the community. Lots of Komodo dragons. And of course, always an opportunity to buy souvenirs. They actually had Komodo dragon claws, though this looked like a wood replica, and a lot of Komodo dragon carvings and pearls. And then it was time to head back. But as we got by our boat on the dock, what was it? But looked like about a yearling Komodo dragon. We had to chase it off the dock back onto shore. Spectacular seeing this juvenile in the bright colors. I believe this may have been the only juvenile Komodo dragon I saw on my whole time on either island. But the trip comes to an end, back to Flores, spectacular hotel. And the next morning we got up, took a tour of the village. Always interesting to see the marketplace, what the people are selling, what they're eating, how they're living. Following our trip to the marketplace, we'd be heading to a cave and then back on our flight to Bali, where we'd be flying back home. Just a spectacular trip. The cave itself, I didn't find all that spectacular. A little cramped, tough for us old guys to bend over. But still a lot of fun. We saw a few insects, and I think we may have even saw a couple bats. But our Komodo trip was over with just photos and memories that, quite honestly, never forget. Not only the dragons, but the sunsets. One last meal in Bali, and back home it was.